Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about whether you should be taking the ACT, the SAT, the PSAT, or all of them or none of them. Because if you're watching this, chances are you are a sophomore, junior, or maybe even a senior in high school and you're trying to figure out what all these tests are, what they mean, and why they might even exist. Essentially what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to give you 5 different students. Each of these students has a different scenario or prep scenario or college goal scenario, and depending on which student you relate to the most, you can go with that student's study plan. So the 5 students are George, Angela, Mark, Samantha, and Rob. Okay, so we have 5 students. I think I need to have 4 students, so we're going to take out Rob, and now we have just 4. So those 4 students, depending on which one you relate to the most, each one has a different situation, and you can tailor your prep plan to each of these students' scenarios. Also guys, before we get into the content, we have 7 free practice exams linked down below. You can access those for free on our website, so be sure to check that out. Before we get to those test cases, we need to first discuss the PSAT. What is it? Why does it exist? Essentially, the PSAT is a way for you to get a scholarship. It's the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. The way you get the scholarship is you do very well on the PSAT, and then you qualify depending on how well you are, like a certain top percentage of the PSAT scores get to qualify for the next level. And that next level, you take I believe you take the SAT, and depending on how you do on the SAT, you can qualify for this scholarship. And it's very exclusive. Usually it's only the top of the top valedictorian type student, pure genius, that gets it. Now, should you take it seriously? Honestly, no, unless you are someone who, A, you are a verified genius, or B, you are very, very, very desperate for scholarship money in college, and you are willing to put in 2 to 3 months of test prep for the PSAT and the SAT prior to your exam, which is going to be your sophomore or more likely your junior year. If you're in any one of those scenarios, again, verified genius, or you're willing to prep a lot your sophomore or junior year for this exam, meaning 5 hours a week for 2 or 3 months, and you want to have a good chance to improve your score to that level where you can qualify for the scholarship, those are the only scenarios where I would say you should be prepping for it and taking it very seriously. Otherwise, it's kind of just see how you do, and if you do good enough to qualify your first time, then you would start taking it seriously, but not just from the very beginning. So we figured that out. Okay, the PSAT is for some students, usually not most. Not for me, even though I consider myself maybe a little bit smart. That's besides the point. And just one more last thing before we get into the 4 different students, the 4 different cases. Let's discuss ACT versus SAT. At this point during the phase that we're in 2021, which test should you be taking? It's honestly up to you. Do whatever your school does, do whatever you might be more used to. I'd say take a practice test for SAT, take a practice test for ACT, and see which one you do better on. Whichever one you do better on, that's the one you roll with, and you end up taking, and you keep prepping for it to get your best score possible. But if your school is giving you a free SAT test, or if it's giving you a free ACT test, honestly just roll with that, because most of the students around you, most of the students that you might be competing for those in-state schools might be taking that same test, and if you want to just be in the same pool as them, then that might be a good move. So honestly, just roll with whatever your school gives you, or with whatever you do the best on your practice tests. I will say that I believe the ACT is a little bit easier if you're someone who wants to improve your science score, because the science section is actually the easiest section, I'd say, to improve in. It's not easy, but it's the easiest out of all the other sections on ACT and SAT. Reading as well, you can improve it pretty well. As for the SAT, it's very math heavy, so if you really hate math, then your math score literally makes up half your SAT score. It's only 1/4 of your ACT score. So if you hate math, take the ACT. If you wanna improve a lot, take the ACT as well. With that being said, let's get into the 4 students. Number 1 was Gregory, I think. In Gregory's scenario, his dream college requires that he takes the ACT or the SAT. And in this particular case, if you are in a scenario where your college requires you to take that test, you will take it. It's as simple as that. This is the easiest scenario where it's literally decided for you. Now, maybe you're applying to multiple colleges. Some require it, some don't. Still, you're still in the Gregory scenario. That's where you still take the test, because obviously you still want to have a chance at those schools that require it, but that you may not necessarily want to go to as much, just because you have multiple applications that you're doing. Case 1 is the easiest case. It's where you take the ACT. Gregory is going to take the ACT or the SAT, regardless of, depending on what is actually required. Case 2 is where your dream school doesn't necessarily require it, but you feel like you have a strong chance at actually improving your score and getting a decent score. Or regardless of what your score is, you feel like you can do a good job in terms of getting a score that is proper on the ACT or the SAT. If you're in this scenario, and I believe this was Matthew or Angelica, let's just say it's Angelica. So in Angelica's scenario, she feels like she can improve her score, even though her school does not necessarily require it. It's a tough scenario because, you know, obviously she doesn't want to do the work that she doesn't have to do, but since she feels like she has a good shot at getting the score that she wants, I would still recommend to her, take it, because it'll help you build a stronger application. A student with a 4.0 GPA is not necessarily the same scenario as a student with a 4.0 GPA and a 36 on the ACT. Both of those are perfect, but one of them is like a double standard of perfect because they have 2 measures of perfection. So if you feel like you can get your ACT score to match or exceed like your GPA, then I would say it's good to take the test, as in the case of Angelica or Angela, I forgot what her name was. So Angelica or Angela will be taking the ACT exam. Case number 3 is Michael or Matthew. Regardless, Michael or Matthew feel like their dream college does not necessarily require the ACT, and they feel like they don't really have a good shot at improving their score. I'd say because you're in a scenario where you don't have the confidence or maybe the motivation or the will to improve that score and put in that work, I wouldn't take it in that scenario. If you're like a last semester like senior and you maybe are just like kind of just coasting through and you're doing some last minute applications for some schools that don't require it and you haven't taken the ACT yet, then in that case, I'd say just leave it, you're good, you should be all right. So again, in the case of Michael or Matthew, whatever his name is, don't take it, it's fine. Because again, the score only helps you if you get a score that's actually going to help your application. If you get a score that's lower than what the GPA expected for that particular score is typically, then what's the point? I will also say though that a lot of colleges give scholarships purely based off of ACT scores. Like in the past, I don't know if they still do this, but Alabama University used to give full rides to any student that would get a 30 or above in the ACT, which is pretty great. 30 or above, I mean, that's 90th percentile, I think. So 10% of students who take the ACT can get a full ride to Alabama University. Keep these things in mind. Like, this gives you even more reason and incentive to actually take the exam. And scenario number 4 is that your dream college, and I believe this person's name was Samantha. So Samantha's dream college does not require the ACT, and she feels like no matter what she does, she's probably gonna suck at the ACT on test day. Maybe she took a practice test or 2 and it went very, very poorly, maybe scoring like 8 to 10 points below her target. If that's the case and your dream college does not require the score, then don't take it. It's probably not a good investment of your time. Of course, I do always tell students like take it, but if you're in these specific scenarios where like you just don't have time, you don't have motivation, and you at the end of the day don't need to take it, it might not necessarily be the move. But for most students, I'd say take it. If you have time, take it. If you're a sophomore, junior, take it. If you're a last semester senior who doesn't have much time and you're just kind of throwing applications at the wall and you don't have an ACT score, don't take it. So that's kind of what these cases and these scenarios of Greg, Angela, Matthew, and Samantha are kind of aimed at helping you navigate. So try to think through, which one do you relate to the most? What is your scenario most aligned with? Whose scenario do you align most with? And based on that, you can make a decision on whether you should take the test, not take the test, maybe take it today, take it tomorrow, take it later, take it yesterday, whenever you decide to take it. So that's it for this video. If you're someone who's looking to take the ACT and prep and improve and do really well on the exam, I will say that we have 6 free practice exams linked down below. These are, actually we have 7 now. These are official practice tests, and these are they're like the best resource you can use. They're the resource that I use to improve my ACT score from a 21 to a 33. I forgot, it's been a while. So you can use those as well. They'll help you get used to the exam, get used to the strategies, the timing, and everything. So be sure to check those out and make use of them because they will help you a lot. They have answer keys as well. And if you need any more resources like prep content, videos, more videos, learning like Khan Academy style videos where we actually teach every skill in the ACT and provide strategies and tutoring for you, we have paid resources on our website as well, in addition to the free resources on the website linked down below. Be sure to check those out. That's it for me in this video. Hopefully you enjoyed and hopefully you found it very, very, very informative. See ya.